Hi everyone, and welcome on another one of our virtual Yellowstone tours. As you can probably see, straight ahead of me is Roosevelt Lodge, which means I'm at the Tower-Roosevelt area. Heading off to my left, down to the south, is the road that is currently closed, and that is the road over Dunraven Pass. It goes past Tower Falls and eventually comes out at Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone. Unfortunately, the road is closed, and that would be a much quicker way to get back from the northeast entrance or the Lamar Valley towards West Yellowstone, for example, or to head down to West Thumb or the lake area or the east entrance. But until 2022, we're going to have to take the long way around. In order to see exactly where we are, please go to the following one of our sites, yellowstonetours.net/map. That's yellowstonetours.net/map, and I will drop in a copy of the map right over here. I was going to say, if you take a look at the map, you'd be able to see where we are, but let's take a look at what we've got going on ahead of us. The chances are that this is going to be a buffalo jam, and for those of you who've seen various of our other virtual Yellowstone tours, you'll know that buffalo jams are not at all unusual in Yellowstone. In fact, I generally say that if you stay here long enough, if you visit here for long enough, you're going to run into one, and you can see what we call excursion diversions to our virtual Yellowstone tours, which focus solely on buffalo jams. But looking at all these people walking away, I wonder, maybe it wasn't a buffalo jam. Maybe somebody either saw a bear or thought they saw a bear. I've told you this before, but you know that it's pretty easy to find a bear in Yellowstone. All you have to do is look out for the crowds, and there is very often a bear. So I was mistaken, it wasn't a buffalo jam. There was obviously something of interest off to the side there that all these people were stopping for. We were talking about where we are in the park at the moment, and if you have a look at that map, if you look at the top right, you'll see the northeast entrance, and then there's a road that runs more or less west from the northeast entrance, and it meets up with the Grand Loop Road at a place called Tower-Roosevelt, also known as Tower Junction. And as I mentioned before, you could turn left or south there in most years and make your way over Dunraven Pass. This year and next year you can't, so we have to turn right, and we're on our way up to Mammoth Hot Springs, which of course is the park's headquarters, and which I'll tell you more about shortly. Coming up on our left is the turnoff to what's known as Petrified Tree. There's an example there of a tree that has been petrified over the centuries, and the National Park Service has been kind enough to put a fence around the tree so that it can't escape and go anywhere. It's stuck there, and I should have a picture of it somewhere, and if I do, I will get it out and drop it in over here somewhere. If you take a look at a map of the park once again, if you have a look down at the lower loop, you'll see that the roads through the park make up a massive figure of 8. And if you take a look at the lower loop of the park, you'll notice that there's a soft purple line that more or less follows Yellowstone's lower loop. That shows where the caldera was was or is. That was the massive hole in the ground that was left the last time the Yellowstone supervolcano erupted. And I'm just going to pull off here and let that travel trailer get ahead of us, and I'll continue that story in a moment. Hopefully the travel trailer is now sufficiently far in front of us. I was talking about the caldera, which was the enormous hole in the ground that was left the last time the Yellowstone supervolcano erupted about 625,000 odd years ago. And for reasons that are associated with that, and the fact that the hotspot under the earth comes up at that under the lower loop, that is where most of Yellowstone's thermal features are to be found: the geysers, the hot springs, the mud pods, and the fumaroles. So we're not going to see much in the way of thermal features here, at least not until we get to Mammoth Hot Springs, where we've got the terraces. The scenery along this stretch of road is really beautiful. You've got the mountains, the forests, the wide open valleys, but we're not going to come across any major points of interest, and for that reason my narration is going to be somewhat more limited than it normally would be on these virtual Yellowstone tours. When I do come across something that's worth telling you about, I'll start chatting again. On our left is what's known as Floating Island Lake. Although today there's not much in the way of an island floating out there, is there? dear, we've caught up with that travel trailer already. I'll probably pull off again when I can to give them a chance to get further ahead, otherwise this virtual Yellowstone tour will go on a lot longer than it should. And we're on the road again. If you're lucky enough to get to Yellowstone in the winters, you'll discover that this road over here, the one that we're on right now, is open year-round, unlike so many of the other roads in Yellowstone. Most of Yellowstone's roads in the winter months close because of the snow and the cold, and in order to get into the park, for the most part, you have to take either a guided snowmobile tour or a guided snow coach tour, although the Park Service has also opened up a lottery in recent years where you can try and draw a permit to take your own snowmobile into the park. Having said that though, there are a couple of the roads inside the park that are open on a year-round basis. Mammoth Hot Springs is the park's headquarters, so it stands to reason that people need to be able to access it on a year-round basis. So the road between Gardner at the north entrance and Mammoth Hot Springs is always open. Then this road over here, as I mentioned, is as well. This is part of the road that leads between the north entrance and the northeast entrance. To get to the northeast entrance, you would take the road from Gardner to Mammoth, and then this road from Mammoth towards Tower-Roosevelt, in other words, the opposite direction to the direction that we're going in at the moment, and then head east at Tower-Roosevelt to get to the northeast entrance, where there are two small towns, and when I say small I mean tiny, called Cook City and Silvergate. The problem for the folks who live there is that the road that leads out of town on the other side, called the Beartooth Highway, is closed in the winter because of the volume of snow. So the only way that those people who live there are able to get out of the park and to get food and services and anything else that they may need is to travel all the way through the Lamar Valley and then up this road and then out Yellowstone's north entrance. So this is why this particular road is kept open year-round. Having said that, this road can be pretty treacherous in the winter. As I've mentioned before, we get a lot of snow here and it gets very cold. And almost the entire way along this road, you've got a small cliff or a hill on the west side. We're heading north, remember, and for the most part, a lot of this road, once it gets covered in snow, it gets really very, very much snow-packed and very icy as people drive over it, so you do tend to slip and slide all over the place, and you do need to be careful when you come here in the winter, but it really is a treat taking this road to the Lamar Valley in the winter months. If you're able to get there early enough, or if you stay there late enough towards sunset, you have got a chance of seeing wolves, and there's also a chance of seeing bears, particularly grizzly bears, in the Lamar Valley. It's also wonderful to come into Yellowstone in the winters because it is so deserted compared to the summer. There's literally just about no one here at all, and you can have the whole park to yourself. Well, not the whole park to yourself, but this part of the park to yourself. We're coming up to the Blacktail Plateau Trail, which leads off to our left, and it's a fun way to get into the backcountry if you're so inclined. There's several trails that run off this road heading into the backcountry, and as I've mentioned before, if you do intend getting out into Yellowstone's backcountry, make sure that amongst other things that you carry bear spray with you. You never know when you could come across a bear. today is one of those days. You never know what you may see in Yellowstone and what the traffic jam is about. At least the traffic coming the other way is moving. I was completely wrong about the last one being a bear jam. So let's wait and see what this one is. As you can see, the roads here are pretty narrow, and we passed a sign as well saying there were no road markings. So it's unwise to try and overtake in circumstances like these. I'm going to stop filming, and when we get closer to whatever it is, I'll start again. Still no sign of what it is. There are people though pulled over ahead of us, and we're just edging along. This is really one of the beauties of Yellowstone. You never know what you're going to come across where. Even if it does land up just being a traffic jam.
Black bear right there.
Oh, somebody said there was a bear right here. A black bear. Now they're pointing up the hill. Well, as I told you earlier, it's easy to see a bear. Just look out for the jam. Look out for the people. Well, we almost saw a bear. How about that? We've got a rule in our tour company that if you come back without a picture, you didn't see it. So by our rules, we didn't see a black bear. You can see some of the higher peaks in the Gallatin Range in the background there. The highest peak, and I need to focus on my driving, but the highest peak that you can see is Electric Peak, and off to the left of it you would have seen Quadrant and Antelope Peaks, and the one immediately to the right of Electric is Sepulka. Don't want to pull over in areas like this where there's nowhere to park. Yellowstone expects you to abide by certain rules, and one of those is don't create a traffic jam. If there's a pullout, by all means get off the road, or if there's somewhere where you can park. Otherwise, when people see a bear or see a wolf, the traffic can be impossible and the lines can go on forever. My device started overheating, so I have started to refilm a portion of this. Coming up on our left, I was saying, is one of my favorite picnic areas in all of Yellowstone. This is the Lava Creek picnic area. Those of you who've seen others of our virtual Yellowstone tours will know that there's a number of things I feel that you need for a great picnic area. Firstly, an awesome view. Secondly, you need a river or a stream or some source of water. And then you should also have one of those primitive restrooms, one of those primitive toilets that they have in the national parks. And Lava Creek has all of those. Oh, and also picnic tables as well. And Lava Creek has all of those. Coming up on our right is Undine Falls, and this is literally right next to the road. You can get out of your car and walk down, just probably 20-25 yards, and you'll be at Undine Falls. So I was saying that Lava Creek is one of my favorite picnic areas in all of Yellowstone. It's got the little creek, the source of running water, it's got the restroom. It doesn't have the stunning views though that some of the other picnic spots have. And coming up off in the distance, you'll be able to see it in a moment, that whitish area, that is Mammoth Hot Springs, and I'll get back to that in a minute. My favorite picnic area in the park at the moment is probably the Snake River one, and you'll see the Snake River picnic area just as you enter Yellowstone's south entrance, traveling north. You'll see it on your right or east. It's literally just after the entrance, and that really is a stunning picnic area. You have the magnificent Snake River, you've got the mountains in the background, you've got open fields and beautiful trees, and it really is a stunning picnic spot. Now that we've seen Mammoth Hot Springs for the first time, let me tell you a little bit about Mammoth. Mammoth Hot Springs, as I mentioned earlier in this video, is the park's headquarters. Yellowstone, as you probably know by now, was established in 1872, but when it came into being, there was no such thing as the National Park Service, so there was no ways to maintain law and order in Yellowstone, with the result that poaching was rampant here. People were setting up camps wherever they wanted to in the park. They were offering bathing facilities in the hot springs, and believe it or not, they were also offering laundry facilities in the hot springs. Eventually, the government decided in 1886 to send the U.S. Army in, specifically the U.S. Cavalry from Fort Custer, which is in Montana. We're in Wyoming at the moment, but Mammoth Hot Springs is only about 5 or 6 miles to the south of the state of Montana. Just incidentally, about 97% of Yellowstone is in Wyoming, 2% is in Montana, and 1% is in Idaho. So the Army came here in 1886, and their mission was basically to enforce order in the park, and that's what they did. And if memory serves me correctly, they were here for 32 years. And they clamped down on the poaching, and you can see the terraces at Mammoth coming into view again. I'll talk about those in a minute. They clamped down on the poaching, they got rid of the illegal camps and the laundry facilities and everything else that people were doing that they shouldn't be doing. This here is the bridge over the Gardner River. As the name suggests, the river flows towards the small town of Gardner, which is just to the north of the north entrance. And there we can see the terraces again. What's interesting about the Gardner River at a location not too far from us and off in the background, you can see some of the historic buildings. When the army came, they needed somewhere to stay, so they constructed a whole lot of buildings for the officers and for the men and for their admin functions, and a lot of those buildings are still here, and Park Service employees stay in many of them. What I was telling you about the Gardner River is that what is interesting, not too far downriver from where we went over that bridge, is something called the Boiling River, which is the only place in the whole of Yellowstone where you're allowed to get into a hot spring. I say get into a hot spring, it's actually the remnants of a hot spring that has come down from Mammoth that you see in front of us. But it's pretty interesting because you can stand with 1 foot in the Gardner River in the spring, say at about, I don't know, 35, 36 degrees, and the other foot in the spring, and that foot can be at, say, 90 degrees. I was telling you about the terraces. What happens in this part of Yellowstone is that the mineral that the thermal water brings up is called travertine. And the travertine comes up from underground at the rate of 1 to 2 inches a week. What this means is that these terraces are continually growing. If you have a look to the left, you can see some terraces that were white and then white in a sort of goldish color. Those are the living terraces. To the right of that, where you see the gray ones, are the terraces that are no longer growing. And you can see we're coming into Mammoth, and what is really quite remarkable about that is that the Park Service actually has to move the boardwalks. And I'm sorry this guy in front of us is going as slowly as he is, but it just does give me time to tell you more. The Park Service then has to move the boardwalk. So when you go to Mammoth Hot Springs and explore the terraces from year to year, you never know quite what you're going to see, because the boardwalks may have moved and the living terraces certainly will have moved. You can see a sign ahead of us saying danger, do not approach wildlife, with a picture of a bull elk, and there is always an elk herd to be found here in Mammoth Hot Springs. When I left here a couple of hours ago, there were some elk right over here, and I'll drop in a video of them. They have moved, but it's very, very, very unusual to come to Mammoth and not see the elk. I don't think I've ever been here and not seen the elk. There we can see some of those historic old buildings that I mentioned to you. Here's another one to the left, and this off to our left now is the old parade ground. Unfortunately, we're coming to an end to another virtual Yellowstone tour. If we were to go left here, we would take the road up to Norris Geyser Basin. If we were to go right, we would go towards the north entrance of Yellowstone. Unfortunately though, this is where I have to end this virtual Yellowstone tour. Thank you for joining me on another one of our virtual Yellowstone tours. If you enjoy our virtual Yellowstone tour series, please consider giving us a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel. Otherwise, see you in Yellowstone.